Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, we are requesting that you excuse yourself from the room. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Marla Billinghurst, and I will be chairing the panel this afternoon. With me today are Mr. Doug Marks and Mr. Richard Whitbread. Our recording secretary for today is Ms. Michelle Neepin, and the city assessor is Mr. Jonathan Dolinsky. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matter for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave, and the process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. And use of cell phones is not permitted except by the approval of the chair, so please put them on silent or turn them off. Thank you very much. The first matter we will be hearing is 333 St. Mary Avenue, Unit 102J. Mr. Dolinsky, please proceed once you're sworn in.
Can you say your full name, please?
Jonathan Dolinsky.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Did we lose somebody?
Oh.
David, you're going to be giving evidence this afternoon?
I'm you, David.
Mark, too? Okay.
Myself and Mark will be.
Oh, okay. So, Mark, I'll affirm you in first. If you can state your full name, please.
Mark Along.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. David, can you state your full name, please?
Yes, David Nishi Beckingham.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I so swear.
Thank you. Is Janet going to be giving evidence?
No, just observing at this point.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Dolinsky.
Thank you. So file number 19-5154, roll year 2020. The address is Unit 102J 333 St. Mary Ave. The business assessment ID is 51584. We have a Tim Hortons. In this address, the total annual rental value is $43,740. The total area of all premises is 640 square feet. Just referring to my first graph here. The base ARV per square foot modeled is $65.89. And the total occupancy cost for this unit is $1,568. And this gets us to the total annual rental value of $43,740. The last line here has the subject lease information sent in. We have a net rent, lease start date of 10th of September 2015, lease term 10 years. And the reported rent per square foot is $60. Turning to my second page, please. We have comparables here to show why we have this rent in place. There's other food court kiosks in 333 St. Mary Ave. As we can see here, we have a good range from $62, $70, $65, $95, $80, and $77. This gets us an average rent of $69.90. So we can see that our modeled rent for this unit is well in the range of the comparables listed here. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any of the applicants have questions for
Yes.
Mr. Dolinsky?
Yes, just a few questions here. On your page 2, you've listed reference dates. So those are the actual rents at those reference dates?
That's correct.
Okay. So those aren't necessarily new rents. They would be, so for example, your second one down went from 60 to 65. That could have been a step up within the term of the lease.
That's possible. I'm not sure on that.
Okay, yeah, same with the other one. It was from 90 to 95. And the one that says NA, those are the businesses that restaurants are no longer there. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. It's very likely, yes. I don't have that information on me.
So you've got 3 that say NA, so you're not sure if those aren't there or why they're NA, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And these were taken from the returns then?
Yes.
And it says down here, all exclude percentage rent. So to the best of your knowledge, they didn't just give you a total rent that they're collecting and divided by square footage. That was net of the of any percentage rents?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marks, do you have any questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
None, thank you.
I have no questions either. So, Mr. Nishi-Beckingham, please, or Mr. Lalonde, please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you. So our position regarding the 333 St. Mary's Avenue, Tim Hortons in the City Place Mall. If you have a look at the brief that we sent in, you can see that the photographs on page 1 showing that it's in fact in the food court. As you see, tables and chairs. Have a look at page 2. It's a map of the mall. Shows the subject's location in relation to the other stores in the food court. The subject itself is an awkward shape, slightly larger than most of the other items in the food court. Moving to page 3 with the numbers, the subject's current assessment is for 640 square feet, currently assessed at $65.89 per square foot. We would likely expect something like this in this location to be something more like $50 per square foot. Unfortunately, because it's awkward size, the only comparable we could find was actually outside of the mall. There's an Esso station at 777 Keewatin Street, which has a Tim Hortons inside, and they're paying a rate of $35. In the subject's actual lease, we've worked out that it's about $55 per square feet. And because of this information, we're looking for the premise value to be 55 square feet. That'll result in a business assessment of $36,768. is what we're looking for. Of course, we tried to get to 35.7 to get the small business tax credit for our client, but the numbers are the numbers. So 36,768 is what we're requesting. And that's our presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dolinsky, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So on your last page, under your comparables, your first comparable is 333 St. Mary Ave. Is that the subject or is that an actual comparable?
David, that's the subject, correct?
That's the subject. That's
the subject, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so we can scratch that one out. And then the second one, 777 Keewatin Street. Would you feel that this place garners as much traffic as this place here in the mall at the 333 St. Mary's Ave? In terms of foot traffic?
Well, there's hardly any foot traffic at the gas station, but there's lots of car traffic. They're both they both get quite a bit of traffic on them, but the mall, obviously they're paying a higher rent at the mall, and it does have a better location. That's hence the higher rent that they're paying.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Just one, no, I'm good, thank you.
Change your mind?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I have no questions either. Does anyone have need for summary?
No, thank you.
Yeah, just in summary, we went back to the lease and pulled the raw data from the lease. So that's where we got our information on the subject.
Okay, thank you very much. Leave it with us. Thank you. Okay, the next matter on the docket is 360 Main Street, Unit FF04.
Can you state your full name, please? Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Mr. Dolinsky, please proceed when ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 19-5777, roll year 2020. The address is 360 Main Street, Unit FF04. Business assessment ID is 41587. The business name in question is Pizza and Pasta della Piazza. We have a total annual rental value of $58,860. Total area of the premises is 670 square feet. The base ARV comes in at $57,198, and the occupancy costs at $1,642. Those together gets the ARV at $58,860. The last line here on my first page is the subject lease information. We can see here that we have a lease start date of 1st of September 2006 for 15 years at $39.87. Turning over to page 2, we have some comparables to show that this lease is outdated and under market. I have 7 comparables in the 360 Main Street food court. We're looking at an average rent of $84.64. And that being compared to our subject, which comes in at $85.37. We can see that we are right on that mark. Turning to my last page, please. Here's the income statement provided as of December 31st, 2017. Highlighted in blue, that blue box there on the top half of the page, we can see that the renewal for August the 31st of 2017 is at $81. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Dolinsky, so on the first page, you do indicate that the rent purports to be $39.87 per square foot.
That's correct.
And you don't know if that is the current rent.
As per my page 3, we have base rent steps on the top half of the page. So highlighted in blue there, we have the newest.
So it's at $81.
Step up. Yeah, $81.
So why didn't you use 81 as opposed to using 85.37?
We're going based off of modeled rents and averages. So as per my page 2,
But your average is around 80. No, for the subject, it works out to $82 per square foot. Is that correct?
that would be what was reported for August, or the start date of September the 1st, 2017. So two under my highlighted blue area, there's the $82.
So I'm a bit confused then. So you're on the one hand, you're saying that on page 2, reported rent is $82. And then on page 3, you show it as $81. And why do you use $85.37 per square foot?
That is a bit confusing. I guess basically, long story short here is I just want to focus on what's reported on page 3, $81. And what the average is in the market on page 2 is about $85. And our modeled rent comes in at $85.37. So,
well, you're saying, I mean, it shows here the weighted average is being just shy of $84. Average is $84.64. Median is $85, and I'm still a little bit confused. In red, you show the subject. You're saying that that's to 82 is in 18. That's the reported rent.
I think there's a bit of a mistake there. It should be as of 08/31/18, so it's a little bit past the reference date. So I'm not using the $82.
Well, but that you said that's as of September 2017. I think that's what you said. It's not past the reference date.
The $82 is that's correct. Yeah, that's a mistake. It should say. I should have highlighted the $82 on the last page.
So let's just get back to the actual rent that the department is using, $85.37. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, so the reported rent is either 81 or 82, and I'm just wondering why you're not using 81 or $82 a square foot.
Well, we don't go based off of one contract rent. We take the whole market. My comparables just takes the best comparables I have of the market, but it's not all of them.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marks?
Yes, so what are we using here as a base rent per square foot?
On page 1, my column there, it says base ARV per square foot, $85.37.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Whitbread?
Nothing, thank you.
I have no questions either. Thank you very much. Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. So I'd like to refer everybody to my brief. And on page 2 of the brief, you'll note that on the first line, just on the right-hand side, I'm asking for $75 per square foot and for the square footage to be 354 square feet. Now, there's a story behind that. And if we turn to the following page, when the developer began construction of the tower, and the tower is located almost above the subject property, above the food court where the subject property is located, they had to locate or relocate HVAC equipment. And what had happened is they had to relocate it to the space adjacent to where these premises are located. And so the pizza place is actually sharing the space with this HVAC equipment, and the landlord needs access at any time to this equipment. Although the tenant is using some of the space in this equipment, is using the space conjointly with the developer. And the developer did not increase, even though this space where the HVAC equipment is located technically is space that was added to the space that was occupied by the tenant. The owner did not ask for an increase in rent. He's still charging rent based on 354 square feet. So in short, we're asking that the space be reduced to 354, which is the actual amount of space that had been used historically by this particular tenant. So we're asking, as I said, furthermore, on the final page, there was a decision. There was actually an agreement between the assessment department and the applicant to reduce the overall assessment from 162 million to 140 million, almost 22 million. So if we turn back to page 2 of my presentation, based on these issues, based on the arguments that I just presented, we're asking that the square footage be reduced to the original square footage of $354. And because the tenant has to share that space with the property owner, we're asking for the base ARV to be $75 per square foot. Now, if you look further down, I had a bit of a problem with trying to determine whether the cost to occupy should be based on the 670 square feet or the 354. I chose to use the 670 because the tenant pays, although he doesn't pay rent for the additional square footage, he still pays for those costs to occupy that space. So in short, based on what you have heard, I'm asking for a reduction to $28,192,000. Sorry, $28,192. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dolinsky, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Applicant, you said that the owner of this business only pays for 354 square feet?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's shown on, I think you're on that page, near the bottom of the page, you'll see.
Okay, thank you. But you said that they occupy the whole space of 670?
Well, they share the occupancy of that additional space with the HVAC system. And as I mentioned, the owner has the right to enter that, to service that HVAC system.
And because of the owner's ability to enter, he gives them a deal on rent.
Yes,
Okay,
but in essence, well, not a deal on rent. He still pays rent on the original area that the tenant has occupied since the beginning.
Okay.
And that additional space is shared space.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you agree that business assessment is based on occupancy?
But I would agree, but in this particular instance, it's kind of a gray area, I think. It's shared space. And I would argue that in this particular instance, because it is shared space, because the owner of the property has the right to enter that space at any time without any notice, because if the equipment needs servicing, they have to service it right away. And as I said, the reason why that this occurred is because of the tower that they're building on top. Because of engineering reasons, I'm not privy to that type of information, but that's what I understand that it happened.
Okay, thank you. Just one last question. You included revision by agreement 15.1 in your brief. Can you explain why this was included?
Well, most of the time when there's a realty decision and the decision reduces the assessed value, it's usually based on adjusted NOIs or adjusted cap rates. In this particular reason, I don't know in this case, I don't know what the actual reason was. I just included it to indicate that the entire property's value was reduced.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marks.
Yes, on that shared space, does the restaurant utilize that as storage or for actual cooking facilities?
Well, it utilizes that space, as I said, it's shared. I don't know much about the restaurant business, unfortunately, but I was there the other day, and I did see a cooler. I think it was in that space, because I asked them to show us what space is actually shared. And there's no delineation in that space. I mean, you can't tell whether the added space, where the added space ends and where it begins. So I did see some functionality there, but as I said, it's shared.
So it would be a partial use of the space, but not total?
Yes.
So then,
But I don't know.
Maybe there should be a shared usage there, perhaps?
Well, all I know is that the owner continued asking rent based on the original square footage of 354 square feet.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread.
Yes. Do you have a floor plan?
No, Mr. Ripper, I don't, and I don't know if you're familiar with that food court there. It's almost right in the corner.
The imagination will take me there. I'll ask another question. May I redirect the assessor? Madam Chair?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Ripper, if you like, I could maybe draw you a very rough plan.
Not to worry, because the assessor's going to answer my question. Now, how would you come to grips with the 680? Do you have any information in your notes? Or 670? Sorry,
670?
670. Have you visited the property?
I have not. That's just what's on file in our system, and that's what I went with for this particular property.
So would this conversation be caught in future notes and reflecting?
Yeah, for sure.
See Les have to come and
we have
justify this.
We have Les's brief here, and I'll make sure that someone looks into it for sure.
Mr. Whitbread, maybe just to follow up on that question. I did chat with Mr. Dolinsky. Unfortunately, Mr. Dolinsky didn't have too much time, and that was one of the things I wanted to ask him if he wanted to come take a look at this particular property. But we did chat maybe twice, I think, or
Yeah,
I know I called you more often than we chatted.
It was brief.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the procedures are now with inspections.
Okay.
But we'll have to look into that.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. I think all of my questions have been answered. So thank you very much. And I guess we'll move on to the next matter. Which is 220 Portage Avenue, Unit 500. Okay, Mr. Dolinsky, please proceed when you are ready.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. File number 19-5732. We have roll year of 2020. Address is 220 Portage Ave, Unit 500. Business assessment ID is 22519. The owners here, Mara West Management Canada Limited. We have a total annual rental value of $157,320. The total area of all premises, 10,322 square feet. The base ARV for this property is $132,018. After occupancy costs, which are $25,289, it gets us to the ARV of $157,320. The last part of my first page here has the subject lease information. We have a lease that is an 8-year lease, and it is under market value at $6.45 as highlighted in blue. Turning to page 2, please, I have a very big selection of OFB properties. I'm not going to go in detail of all these properties, but if we turn to page 3, we have everything broken down with an average of $14.96. And this is over 373,718 square feet of reported leases. We have some supplemental information I won't get into that's in the brief. But that being said, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks.
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread.
Yes. So is there a suggestion that it's 645 under market because it is owner occupied?
Yeah, so is this owner occupied?
It says that in
Yeah.
red.
Yeah, okay, so this what I would consider a book rent where, you know, you can't really depend on it. It's just the owner reports a rent. It's their building, so it doesn't really matter what they put. What I want to lean on is the comparables. We have 71 comparables found throughout the city, and the average is about $15. So our modeled rent comes in at $12.79, so I feel this is a fair value.
Okay, I'm sure Les will have something to say about that. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Nor do I. Okay, so please proceed with your presentation.
Well, I don't really have much of a presentation in this instance. I actually do agree with the assessment department in this case. As my brief, page 2 of my brief suggests, there was a realty appeal. There was slight change in the realty assessment, but not enough to for us to argue to reduce the PA on this property. So in short, we have no argument.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dolinsky, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Marks?
No, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread? Sorry? Oh,
No, thank you.
oh, sorry. Nor do I. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you bring paper copies of your?
Oh, I did, yes.
I will look at Rocky.
Okay, the next matter on the docket is 8 Donald Street.
Thank you. Let's bring you in first.
Right.
Can you state your full name, please? Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Did you get copies of the assessor's brief?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I thought maybe you had them. One second.
What's first up?
8 Donald Street.
There's a rec here as well.
Oh, is
I
there?
forgot to mention, sorry.
Would it be better to take a short recess now for you guys to discuss this?
If you want, I just had one question I wanted to ask the assessor on 8 Donald.
Yeah, we can take a,
Mr. Whitbread, Mr. Marks, would you guys
Yes.
Yes.
take a short recess? Okay, you know, Michelle, we'll just take a short recess then and let them, and then Mr. Neufeld can review the assessor's briefs and we can. Okay, we're ready to, okay, I'll call this meeting back to order. Mr. Dolinsky, please proceed.
thank you, Madam Chair. File number 19-5806, roll year 2020, address is 8 Donald Street. Business assessment ID is 19106. We have a total ARV of 42,360. Total area of 2,650. Our recommendation here is to reduce the 2020 assessment to 36,640. And this is based on my second line here, highlighted in red. 29,150 base ARV at $11 per square foot. And this gets us, after occupancy costs, to 36,640. This was based off trying to follow the order from file number 19-221, which is found on page 2. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, will you be accepting this recommendation to reduce?
No, we're not.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Mr. Dolinsky?
I do. Now, in reading the previous board order, I note that on your third page, you provided the workup that we had submitted for that hearing. And I was just noting on there that we had requested a 9% cap rate and the board had changed it to 8.5%, I'm sorry. Did you have a chance to calculate if the 8.5% they applied ended up matching the assessed value of $324,000?
No, I have not.
Okay. And Do you have on your record an age of this property? On your records, not mine?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marks.
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Yeah, just looking at the assessors, I'm sorry. That's the applicants. I was noting a date there, but I couldn't find one on the assessors. In relation to page 1, the fourth band of notes, you have an actual rent of $6.91. It doesn't say this, no, it says this is not an owner occupied, so it's an arm's length transaction. Can you explain to me how you don't factor that into your thinking on the $11?
I believe that this would be under market value. It probably has something to do with the lease start date being from 1990. So it's a very long lease. It probably is nowhere near market according to what I've seen.
Yeah, in fact, there's no end to the lease,
That's correct.
according to your notes. Okay, so that's your subjective call. Okay, thank you. No further questions?
Okay, nor do I. Mr. Neufeld, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. This is not a typo. The home was built, it was built as a house in 1891. Lots of modifications along the way, so many so that it doesn't go into the historical registry. But the basic building is from 1891. I've been in it and I've inspected it, and it certainly shows its age in many areas. It's being operated as a travel agency on the first and second floor, and the third floor is a residence. The number at the hearing for realty was decided. The evidence I have on page 3 and 4 in rents is the same that we had presented at that time. And on page 5 is a copy of the order, reducing it. And it says an adjusted rental rate with a capitalization rate of 8.5%. And our calculation of that was bottom right-hand corner. What we did is we put in the 8.5%, we put in all the assessment department parameters, and came up with a net income of $31,200. And that's on the whole area, including the third floor, which is $883 a square foot. Now, to further break that down for just the first and the second, at the bottom of the page is what we actually submitted at the hearing as a requested rental value. So it turns out the board did apply our rental value. Well, we were $12 apart, I suppose. That's a rounding issue. So they did accept $10 on the first and $8 on the second. That information is also shown on the assessor's page 3, showing what we had submitted. So we're requesting that be carried forward to the rental value on business, and that would result in a value of $30,620. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dolinsky, do you have any questions?
Yes, just to clarify, Mr. Neufeld, the boards gave you the order based on $10 on the first, 8 on the second, and 8 on the third?
That's our calculation, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions. Thanks.
Do you have a spare calculator there? Is that?
This one is yours.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
None, thank you.
I have no questions either. Okay, thank you very much. The next matter is 177 Lombard Avenue, Unit 100.
I have a preliminary issue on this matter.
Yes.
Okay, and I hope no one is offended by what I have to say, because it isn't meant to. discovered about a week ago that Mr. Boreski had sent a memo to board members on matters relating to fiscal years, market years, especially in relation to appellants who are quoting COVID-related issues. And I fully expect that board members are still going to make up their own minds, but in the interest of fairness, I haven't seen this memo, and if it is evidence-based, we should have the opportunity to see it before we know what the board has seen. That's pretty much it. And I'm asking that you adjourn, issue a subpoena, as you do have the power to do, for this memo and supply it to us. And I think there's an open date for a hearing on July 29th.
Sorry, what?
I've contacted Mr. Boreski already, and I have asked him about this, and he has admitted he has sent out a memo to the board. He describes it as education. And I just think in the interest of fairness, it pertains to hearings that still must be heard. And I don't know what it says. And again, I trust the board are making up their own mind, as I know board members will make up their own minds. But the taxpayer deserves to see the evidence that's been presented, or to determine if it's actually evidence. And so Mr. Boreski is aware of this matter. Visa, I've told about this matter, and I've portrayed it as a ex parte communication until such time as we can see what it actually was. But it wasn't of a general nature. It was specific. In my understanding, it arose out of cases I was bringing forward where I called the closure of businesses by the province as force majeure and a physical issue that must be considered in the tax year, not a market matter.
Okay, what I'm going to do, I would like to discuss this with my fellow panel members. So if I could please ask everyone to give us a minute, please.
Thank you.
And Michelle, could you please turn the camera off? Okay, I'll call this meeting back to order. Mr. Neufeld, in regards to your request, we have discussed it and we are denying your request to adjourn this matter today. So please proceed with 177 Lombard Avenue. Mr. Dolinsky.
Okay. Thank you. File number 19-5137. Roll year 2020. The address is 177 Lombard Avenue, Unit 100. Business assessment ID is 54359. We have Salisbury House of Canada. Premise area of 3,500 square feet. Base ARV of 38,395. And total occupancy costs of 8,575. This gets us to the total annual rental value of 46,980. My last line here, we have the lease from Salisbury House. We can see here that there's a reported rent of $13.09 and reported recoveries of $3.29. That gets us very close to our base ARV of $10.97. Page 2 has an exterior photo of this premise. Page 3, this is the front entrance into the restaurant. Page 4 is interior photos, as well as page 5. And page 6 has a selection of OFD rents found throughout the city of Winnipeg. We can see here that the average is $11.40. And some supplemental information of permits, and that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, do you have any questions?
Yes, you said that the reported rent was $13.09?
Yes, that's correct.
When did that start?
This is from September the 14th, 2018.
So that's post-reference?
That's correct.
And did you have the rent rate from the prior occupant?
I do not.
Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marks.
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread.
Nothing, thanks.
And I have no questions, so Mr. Neufeld, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Now, we have not done a workup on the rental value of it. We're aware on page 3 that the prior rent was $10 a square foot for September 15th with a 7-year period. And that particular tenant, I believe, became insolvent, and Salisbury House took over the lease, and the assessor has it at $10.97. But the actual rent, prior tenant, was $10. That's the number that you're supposed to be considering. Your issue here is, as I mentioned earlier, that on page 5, we have the act, and the act on page 5 is from the City of Winnipeg Charter. The City of Winnipeg Charter says that the rental value is it's on premises used or occupied by a person for carrying on a business in the city. That's 316.2. On page 8, we have the beginning of the provincial orders that closed this business, as well as all the other restaurants in the city. And the closures officially were in place from March 20th to June 21st. However, they were announced on March 17th. That businesses were forcibly closed by under the emergency powers granted to the province. And incidentally, the province also has the right for taxation, not the city. It's a provincial right, all taxation, and the city only administers it. The act in regard to how it must be changed is at the bottom in section 340, where it is to be changed because of a change in its physical condition. That's 341B, and then 340C, a reduction in the size of the premises, that it must be changed. And the last one, F, a business has ceased to be operated. Now, ceased to be operated on March 20th, 2020 was indefinite. There's no language in there that says it's temporary or it's permanent. They were shut down. A tax on business is a tax on business. You can't carry on business, you don't pay a business tax. And that's our position. And what we have done is simply prorated out the 3 months that they were closed. And that comes to an ARV of $35,228 for the 3 months they were closed. That's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dolinsky, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, of your restaurant rental rates, comparables here, what would you feel is the best comparable in this list for our subject?
I'm just trying to think of one with a bit more of an up-down and in the same location. The actual subject rent, of course, at $10, Brooklyn Bistro, and before that it was called the Shark Club, was set at $10 on the main and $8 on the upper. So that should be the strongest lease.
Okay, thank you. Are any of these comparables a similar year built as our subject? Or tenant bid up?
1909, Gary is that age. I'm looking at page 3. 115 Gary is that region. 177 Lombard, of course. 70 Arthur, yeah, at the bottom of that list is in that same age category. Oh, also 370 Donald. 370 Donald is a building that was just renovated, and it's not a basement. It's a split level, so it's 3 feet below grade, and that's a brand new kitchen at $9 a foot.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
No questions from me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
No.
And I have no questions either. Thank you. The next matter is 1080 Waverly Street, Unit 8. Mr. Dolinsky, please proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 19-5845, roll year 2020. Address is 1080 Waverly Street, Unit 8. The business assessment ID is 53951. The owners here are Financial Heights Incorporated. Premise area 26,004 square feet. Base ARV 38,982. Base ARV per square foot, $14.97. The occupancy costs come to $6,380. This gets us to the total ARV of $45,360. Subject lease is for $13. I believe this is under market based on the comparables presented on page 6. We have 33 comparables, OFS properties found in Winnipeg. I won't go into detail, but we can see here that the average is $15.19. So it suggests that our model rent of $14.97 is right bang on with that. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, do you have any questions?
Yes. Do you have any evidence to show that it is under market? Like knowledge that an under market transaction was undertaken?
I'm just suggesting that it is a lower rate based on the comparables that are presented on page 6.
Right, based on the comparables presented, but anything to demonstrate that, any knowledge that it's under market, the particular knowledge of this transaction?
I don't have them.
Okay. And your comparables on page 6, these are offices with a range of different addresses in southwest Winnipeg, correct?
Correct.
And this particular property, have you been in it?
I have not.
So you're not aware that it is only 60% office and the back is a warehouse?
I'm not aware of that.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marks?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
May I have a moment, please? Just looking at something else.
Sure.
So this property was reassessed under property value, Mr. Galinsky, and reduced in value? Is that, am I looking at the right information here?
Yes,
As a
as,
board order?
as per the board order, that's correct, yes.
And it was based on net income and a cap
And
rate,
cap rate.
and so you chose not to follow that reduction in rent?
I'm not sure if there's anything done to the rental rates.
When it talks about operating income, that would typically be your.
Yes, that's correct. We decided not to go with what the order is, what the order is.
Okay, so you ignored the order. Thank you. No further questions.
Right. Nor do I. Mr. Neufeld, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. I do have firsthand knowledge of this. This is my neighbor who's rented it, and this is my client we rented from, and I put them together. I was Mr. Little Matchmaker. It's a 60% office. The back is warehouse. He was interested in it because he wanted to store his car inside there in the winter. And that's why the rate is what it is. It's $13 net. There were no inducements. There was no TIs. There's nothing special on it. Clean deal. 5 months before the reference date at $13. And that's what we would like it changed to. And the whole concept of what the realty versus the business in this case, the other issue is, of course, this is a multi-tenant facility. So there's no, you can make your own decision on the concept of flow through, but paid rent, we clipped out, this is right from the rent roll, right from the evidence, $13. Thank you. They're just getting the quality messed up. It's not all office.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Jelinski, do you have any questions?
Just one, the warehouse finish in the back, how would you kind of explain what it looks like?
Just open truss ceiling, and there's some shelves on the side, slab floor, basic lighting, and a space heater.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Marks.
Just one, the rate you came up with for your ARV was based on the reevaluation of the property?
On the actual paid rent, $13.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread.
None, thank you.
I have no questions either. Just give me 1 minute to make a note, please. These are going too fast. Okay. All right, okay. The next matter, 401 Provencher Boulevard. And Mr. Jelinski, please proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 19-5913, roll year 2020. The address is 401 Provencher Boulevard. Business assessment ID is 28241. We have two premises here, premise 4176 and premise 31234. First premise has a premise area of 2,349 square feet. Base ARV is 35,963, and the base ARV is $15.31. And the occupancy cost for this premise is $5,755. Second premise is 31234. The area is 832 square feet with a base ARV per square foot of $10.85. And the occupancy cost is $1,756. This takes us, adding them both together, to a total ARV of $52,500. We have a owner occupied space. We don't have to look too much into what's reported. Turning to page 2 is an overhead view of the site. Page 3 has an exterior view of the front side of the building. Page 4 shows the parking on the side. And then page 5 has our OFS comparables. As we can see here, we have a total average of $14.40. More comparables, OFS comparables on page 6. This would be for the basement space. So the second premise that I was referencing, that is 832 square feet, this would be the basement. So our justification for the rent here is using these 17 comparables, and the average comes in at $9.09. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, do you have questions?
Yes, your comparables, page 6. Are any of these converted houses?
I'm not sure.
I don't believe so, just looking at the list, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
No, with the problem, this is a converted house, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
And when you convert a house, there's different method. There may be spaces that in a house might be treated in differently area than in a commercial operation, correct?
Agreed.
Yeah, okay. Now, the area, premise area, 2349, is this upper level? Is this like main floor plus that part second?
Yes.
Okay. And the 832 is all basement?
Below grade. Yes.
Below grade, okay. You haven't inspected it by any chance?
I have not been there.
Okay. Now, at the bottom, you list that there's a subject lease information for 2,063 square feet, correct?
Yes.
And that's gross.
Yes.
Okay. And what about the rest of the space?
That's what's being reported by the owner. Obviously, it's more of a book rent, so it just generates. I'm not putting any weight on it.
Well, but they didn't. Was there a report on that? Yeah, no, sorry, the rest of the space.
I don't have the income expense mailer on me. I'm not sure.
There is another operating company in there, is there not? Called DB.
If there is, I don't have that information on me. I'm not familiar.
The Board of Revision order on this particular property you didn't include this?
No.
But you do acknowledge that there was a fairly substantial adjustment on it?
Yes. Yes.
And there was a disagreement as to area as well as rental rates and cap rates, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
My question has been answered, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Excuse me. No, I don't. Thank you.
Nor do I. Mr. Neufeld, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. So we have a major issue on the space, and you'll note that we're following the 2,063 square feet, and I agree with the assessor. while it might be close to a book rent, there are different principles, different company principles on it. It's a father and his son, and they don't have necessarily the same ownership of the real estate versus the operating company. But they're only using 2,063 square feet. The balance of the space is either used by another company, used by the owner as classified as residential use, or completely unusable basement space. And the pictures are on page 2, shows the outside of it. You can see converted house. Page 5 is the main floor. Page 6 is the top is the basement, part of the basement that is included in the 832 square feet. And the bottom is the first floor. Now the page 7 pictures is a portion of the upper floor that's used by another operating company that we haven't included. They're called DB. And page 8 is that upper floor. The bottom picture, definitely the upper floor. You can see with the half ceiling. So we're only using for this particular user the 2,063 square feet. The information presented at Board of Revision was on page 4, and the decision was based on net operating income presented by the applicant and a capitalization rate of 7. So on page 4, the calculation has been made there, and you can see that the workup was we had asked was exactly what we had asked for, just with the change in the cap rate, and what we had asked for was $10 on that owner space on 10 on 1, and $11 on the other company's occupancy of 286 square feet on the second, with no cost at all to the basement because it was mainly service and or personal. Well, in this case, sorry, I got a little confusing here. In realty, it never would have counted as occupiable square footage because it fails to meet the minimum height for an occupancy permit. However, because the owner owns it himself, he does have the right to use it himself. And when you put this on the market to sell it in realty, you can only count 2,349 square feet. That's all you can. Our law, our rules would allow you to call it. And that's why we're sticking hard and firm on that. In business, the interest is a little bit different. We're not saying that there isn't finished space in the basement, but it's of a personal nature. There's a shower down there, and there's exercise equipment down there. So the follow through is, I think, fairly simple. The only question is the 286 square feet. There is not a formal lease in place. It's just space that a completely third party occupies. So, and I think the person who prepared this brief wasn't quite aware of that situation. So there potentially that space could be added to it, and that could be like an assumed sublease. And I don't think there's anything wrong with treating it that way. So I would think we should probably just adjust our numbers to match the board order perfectly. So our square footage should be 2,349 with a rental of 23,776, and the costs associated. How much is that per square foot? It's somebody can help me out. 160, 220, 345, right? Okay.
245, I think.
245?
Did you say 2 or 3?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 245.
245.
So cost to occupy would then change to 57.55 plus 23776. So I think an ARV of 29,000 531, and on rounding, would be 29520. 29,520, and that's a perfect match to the board order.
What's that per square foot number?
That would be $10 for the 2,063 square feet and $11 on the 286 square feet. Yeah, I think that's the right way to do it, because I would characterize this lease as sort of like a sublease that you got someone occupying space, but the intent is not to earn income. It's and I don't even know how much money passes hands between them, if any. So the ID Fusion should take responsibility for it.
So your number is 29520.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Neufeld, anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dolinsky, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, you're asking for us to consider there being 286 square feet in the basement?
No, that's an upper level space.
Upper level space. Okay, so upper level at $10 at 286 square feet?
Do you have my brief? Did you get it?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I agree.
Yeah, on
There it is, okay.
page 4.
Okay, so this 286 square feet, that's the upper floor?
Correct.
Okay, and then the 2,063 square feet, what does that account for?
That's the main floor, and I think that's the main and part of the second. Sorry, I didn't bring my property file with me.
Okay, and you're not including the basement?
Not at all. No, like I said, it's either personal or not space. Sorry, I don't think I have a picture here of the basement space. There is, like I said, down there, there's an exercise machine. Well, there's obviously the mechanical area. That's pretty simple and clear. But the other part of the basement, it has is like an exercise room and shower and bathroom. Okay. I think that's got to be classified as personal, because
you do agree that the owner does occupy that space, the basement?
Yeah, but not for business purposes. Of course, yes, they occupy it. It's like the 8 Donald one that we talked about, where in that case, the owner has a little suite on the top floor, and in this case, the owner's got a little private room in the basement.
Right, okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Marks.
Yes, regarding the basement, is that not used for storage for the business at all?
Well, I didn't go through his files. No, because they're a software company. They don't have files anymore. Everything's on a computer.
I'm just thinking about other things.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. They could store stuff down there, but when I was in there, it just looked like a junk shop. Like there was no, you know.
I was just thinking a portion of that could be utilized as storage for the business.
Quite possibly, and because it's a gray area, I don't really would want to say that someone should be taxed on a gray area. You know, the alternative in cases like that is, you know, if you apply a storage rent on it, a nominal rate, and if this were a commercial operation, like I have clients who've got storefronts and then they have basements that are included. There's no element of personal nature in that basement whatsoever, because they can't, because they have a lease. So you got to put a rent on it because it's accessory use. In this case, it's a house, and it's part personal, part business. So I think that crosses the line on the basement. If the people were so inclined to do it, then what would be required is go down there and do a measurement of the finished area and put a rate of $1 on it, and that might be 400 square feet. You throw $1 on it, and then with costs, it's $345 on the basement space. That's going to make a nominal change of about $1,300 in the ARV. I don't think that that's procedurally right, but obviously, we'd be open to looking at something like that. I just don't agree with it. It's a small amount, compromise. Okay, for $1,300 is fine.
I've known this area for quite some time, and I know that that has been used as a business for many years now. And it hasn't been a house for probably 30 years. So can you really look at that as a house?
Well, you have to in terms of construction. That was my point, because it was built as a 1.5-story house. So when you take into account the utility of the second floor, and you like in a realty, in an official way of measuring premises, if you're doing a house, there's a formula that a realtor will tell you that we do with a 1/2 story and 3/4 stories, and how you have to report it. In the commercial world, it differs a bit, because we would then look at the utility of the site, and could an occupancy code be granted on any of this space on a commercial capacity. And then we get into things like ceiling height. And so for example, if a realtor put this on the market as a house, they would probably advertise, I don't know, 2,800 square feet, 1.5 stories, something like that. Okay. Commercial world, we would have to put it on as 2,000 feet, because we're comparing it to other commercial operations, and there's not a lot of 1/2 stories, that it's not, it would be misleading.
It's not the norm.
Right. It's not the measuring standard that the real estate world uses. And that's what we're running into here. So when the assessor brings in comparables and you're comparing what they have to this, you have to use the same element of comparison.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread.
Sorry, I'm going to leave that, but may I redirect once you're done to the assessor?
Sure, I don't have any questions for Mr. Neufeld, so go ahead.
Were you aware of the board decision on page 3 of Mr. Neufeld's brief?
Yeah, I wasn't at the appeal, but I know about the decision. I don't know the fine details as much,
But you can see it's a substantial rate.
yeah, there's an argument of what should be considered for square footage.
Now, before you go on,
Okay.
did you make again a subjective decision to not consider that appeal decision in your findings for this brief?
Yes, just going based off what we have modeled.
Okay. And my next question would be, do you know if the department has appealed that decision?
I do not. Offhand.
Okay. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much. The next matter on the docket is 433 Main Street, Unit 1200.
I took my motorcycle in today. I'm getting punished on the way home, I know it.
Has it rained?
It looks bad out there.
Okay.
Sure.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
could we have a 5-minute recess?
absolutely.
Gives the applicant time to set up and go for a walk.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Okay, go.
All right, I'm going to re-adjourn the meeting. We'll be starting with 433 Main Street, Unit 1200. Would you please swear in or affirm the applicant?
Marcel? I'll have to from you first.
Oh, right here.
Can you state your full name, please?
Marcelo Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you be given at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Dolinsky, please proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 19-5653, roll year 2020. The address is 433 Main Street, Unit 1200. The business assessment ID is 20764. The business name is Group Sales. Have a premise area of 3,873 square feet, base area of $45,740. And this is a per square foot rate of $11.81. Total occupancy cost is $9,489. This gets us to the total annual rental value of $55,200. The subject lease information that I have is that it was owner occupied, book rent in 2015, non-market, and we have a sale from late 2019. Turning to page 10, have OFB comparables, and also I have OFC comparables, but we'll go over the OFB first as our subject is an OFB building. Page 10 we have, and turning to page 5 and 6. At the end of page 6, we have an average of 71 OFB comparables coming in at $14.96. And just for reference, I also have more comparables found on page 9 of OFC class properties. So these would be a step down from our OFBs, and their average is $11.43. So this in comparison to our model value of $11.81, I believe we have a good valuation here. And that is my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yes. I see that you've included the decision on here, which in which the board sided with the agent and based their decision on that information that the agent provided, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you just stated that, actually it's stated in the brief itself that this was owner occupied, this location, correct?
Yes.
Now, have you provided any evidence to suggest that it is owner occupied? So the leases themselves are not included in this brief, correct?
That's correct. I don't have any.
Okay. Now, the owner is the Canada Life Insurance Company. Okay. Now, I am familiar with this lease, and I know that the leasee is actually GWL.
Okay.
Do you know who GWL is?
Great West Life.
Great West Life. Now, if there is an association there with them, I'm not sure of it, and I don't think there is. That $8 per square foot rent was actually taken by the board on 2 occasions in 2018 and 2020.
Okay.
So it is, as your record state, a 10-year lease. It is at $8 per square foot. Now, I don't know if the board would want to adjust it, but we think that $8 is a fair rent for that space. Would you not agree?
Based on my comparables, I believe our $11.81 rent is.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marks?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread.
Do you know whether Great West Life owns Canada Life or has Great West Life become Canada Life?
I do not.
You don't know. Okay, it's my understanding based on the signage on Great West Life's building on Osborne that it is now Canada Life. So that would support that it is owner occupied.
That's true. I cannot confirm, but
Okay.
you're on to something there.
Now you included information on, I think, page 2, did you not, about the board hearing? Yes, you did. And it looks like it was based on income and a fairly substantial reduction.
Yes.
Did you consider that in your decision?
It was looked at, but I felt we had strong evidence suggesting the model value was there.
Okay. And do you know if this new value has been appealed by the department?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you sort of a, I don't know, it's a theoretical or hypothetical question, but if this value was found by the board in an appeal and your department did not appeal that decision, would that suggest concurrence with the new rental or with the existing rental value over what the assessment department has tried to prove with their model? Am I making myself clear?
Can you simplify that question?
Not much. So when you came to the board, or the applicant came to the board working with your model number and the applicant's number, decided to go with the applicant's evidence.
Right.
If if your department did not appeal that, could one surmise that they agreed with the value that the board upheld?
There's a lot of factors that go into whether we're going to appeal or not.
So I shouldn't necessarily assume, because you didn't appeal, you agree with this number.
I'm not sure if we appealed or not. We might have. I don't have that information.
Yeah, I heard that, but, okay, so you can't answer my question, basically.
That's correct.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you very much, nor do I. So, Mr. Navarro, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay. The value that we're requesting is $40,440. It is based on that $8 rent that was signed on July 1, 2015, between the two companies. I'll note on there that the two companies became one company in January of 2020, not January in 2015. So the lease itself was signed in July 2015. Great West Life, London Life, and Canada Life became one in January of 2020. So this lease was signed way ahead of that. You'll see on my brief on page 3 the calculation of the rent, the ARV, and also the decision. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dolinsky.
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Marks.
Yes, your $8 a square foot would based on what again?
That is the lease in place.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread.
No questions, thanks.
Nor do I. Okay, thank you. We can move on to the next matter, which is 262 Marion Street. Mr. Dolinsky, please proceed when you are ready.
Thank you. Chair, file number 19-5250, roll year 2020. The address is 262 Marion Street. Business assessment ID is 38846. The owners here are Comforts of Home Care Incorporated. Recommendation is we request that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation, section 53(3)B of the MAA, and a reduction to $63,420 following section 54(3.2) of MAA. This order can be found on page 2. I don't know if you guys want to discuss or if I should carry on.
No, we'll discuss. Can I please ask to leave the room?
Should I be making some type of commentary on this, whether I oppose it?
Yes, sorry.
I have to. Right?
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to read this and it's sideways on my screen. Give me 1 second, okay? I don't know why this is sideways. Okay, sorry, go ahead. Okay.
So I'll just state my information verbally regarding the penalty. I believe that this pertains to a decision of the municipal board relating to the Manitoba Hydro Corporation. In that decision, the board decided that penalties could be imposed on business assessment. However, the nuance in that decision was that the request actually had to be made regarding the business assessment. And I'm not sure that that was actually done in this case, at least for this cycle, on any property that the penalty was, or sorry, that information was requested on business assessment. So we oppose the penalty on those grounds. So the municipal board decision pertaining to hydro made the decision that penalties could be made on business assessment, but at the same time, a request had to be made by the assessment department for that information. And I don't believe that this has been requested in this case. And for that matter, for any case in the 2020 assessment cycle.
Okay, do you have a copy of that municipal board decision?
I don't, but either way, that's why I'm opposing it. Again, they're providing information pertaining to the realty, not to business assessment.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to discuss with the panel.
Now we leave?
Yes, please.
Before they leave, may I ask one question?
Of course, sorry. Go ahead.
You've heard the applicant make his point about evidence and previous hearing. Have you provided evidence of request for information? I'm racing through this brief of yours. Oh, okay, now I'm finding it. Sorry. You have evidence here, correct? That's good. Okay. I found what I want.
Sure. Mr. Marks, did you have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay. I will call this meeting back to order. We are addressing the request made by the City of Winnipeg for non-cooperation pursuant to Section 53(3)B of the Municipal Assessment Act. We have discussed the matter and we are going to deny your request. So please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Just referring to my box here of premise area of all the premises, 5,200 square feet, base ARV 50,700, base ARV per square foot comes in at $9.75. Total occupancy cost $12,750. $1,000,000.39 for an annual rental value of $63,420. This rate was based on the order. I have some OFS comparables to back that up, the value up. You can see here, page 5. We have 65 OFS comparables, average of $14.06. And some OFS rent comparables for below grade. We have 17 comparables on page 6, an average of $9.09. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I have no questions for the assessor and will accept the value.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Marks?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
None. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Navarro, did you want to say anything else?
No, we're accepting. Yeah.
Okay, great.
You're accepting.
The 68,000.
Oh, okay. Like confirming these.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next matter. Sorry, 1280 Archibald Street, Unit 200.
Thank you. File number 19-5664, roll year 2020. The address is 1280 Archibald Street, Unit 200. Business assessment ID 51352. The owners here is Thorwin Real Estate LP. Have a total annual rental value of $83,280. Total area of all premises 5,060 square feet. And overall ARV per square foot of $16.46. Breakdown is below. So we can see there's 3 premises here. I'm not going to go through them in depth, but we can see that the calculations get us to this total ARV of $83,280. We have an owner-occupied premise. Page 2 is an overhead view of the property, and it's a bit of an irregular shape. Page 3 is the income and expense mailer sent in. You can see it's owner occupied. Won't look too much at the rents there. Page 4 is some market evidence to support our model rent. We have 33 comparables OFS properties or leases found within Winnipeg. The average comes in at $15.19. That is right around the market for our model value. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Nothing, thank you.
Nor do I. So, Mr. Navarro, please proceed with your presentation when you are ready.
Okay. So I have requested a value of $67,620, which is actually incorrect because I made a slight error in calculating the AC rent, the AC occupancy cost on this this calculation. So I'll revise the AC calculation to $1,720. That gives me a total ARV of $68,057 and rounded to $68,030. So I'll start from the beginning. This building was built in 1963. Has an effective age of 1970, 2-story, 5,060 square feet. You can see 2 overhead shots of the property. It is located on the west side of Archibald Street near Fermor. If you look at the analysis, the rent that we're requesting is $11 per square foot. And that is based on the rents in the appendices. And one thing, I'll take you through these rents. There are a lot of them. However, the ones that I focused on were the ones that were in and around the date, effective date or effective age of the property. And so I chose, you can see on my brief that there's certain properties that are highlighted, 1968, 1969. You can go through the rents also, 79, 75, and also, again, through the entire list there. There were a couple of anomalies here, and in the appendix, I included information additionally to those. For example, 1150 Waverly Street, which is on that list of rent comparables. Now, the reason why that property is a little bit higher at $14 is because of some renovations that were done, so 10 improvements that were done. So that would be the reason why the rent was slightly higher. And then the other property that I looked at was 549 Regent, which was also one of those anomalies in this list that showed slightly higher rents. $20, $18, $18. I couldn't make anything of this other than I suspect these possibly could be gross rents or semi-gross rents and not net. I didn't have enough information. However, they did stand out. So for the period of the type of property that we're looking at, which has an effective age of 1970 on it, I think a rent of $11 is more appropriate. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dolinsky. Any questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Navarro, what do you feel is your best comparable here on your comp sheet?
Probably the first one at Buffalo Place, then 1313 Border Street, $11, around 5,000 square feet.
I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks?
No questions from me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
No questions, thank you.
Nor do I. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Okay. Okay, Mr. Dolinsky, I guess we will go back to 1160 Pembina Highway.
Done. Yep.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks.
You as well.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Is there an applicant for this property?
No.
Okay, Mr. Dolinsky, have you had any contact with an applicant?
I have not.
Okay, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 19-5044, roll year 2020, address 1160 Pembina Highway. Business assessment ID is 54809. The owners here is KWB Chartered Professional Accountants Incorporated. I have a recommendation to reduce the 2020 assessment to $52,140. That's based on a base ARV of $18 and total occupancy cost of $6,248. Quickly go over my comparables here on page 7. We have an average of $18.12. 21 comparables found on page 7 of OFS properties, and that is my justification for this new valuation. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marks, any questions?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Nothing, thank you.
Nor do I. Okay, thank you. The next matter, 375 Main Street, Unit R3. Is there an applicant for this property?
No, there's not.
Mr. Dolinsky, have you had contact with any applicants for this property?
I don't believe so, no.
All right, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. File number 19-5944, roll year 2020. The address is 375 Main Street, Unit R3. Business assessment ID is 50398. The owners is Marcelo's Market and Deli Incorporated. We have a premise area of 2,742 square feet, base ARV of $22.83. Occupancy cost at $6,718, and which gets us to the ARV of $69,300. Turning to page 2, please. Have some comparables here. Include 2 in the Shed District and 7 in the downtown area. The average rents of these comparables come in at $23.60. This is very comparable to our modeled rent of $22.83. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marks, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Nothing, thanks.
Nor do I. So thank you very much. And I will now close the hearing for today.